afternoon, everyone. I hope we can hear each other. I would like to welcome you to our webinar and thank you for joining to our webinar of the Health and Safety Working Group regarding our activity Safe Retailers. There are some, I would say, additions before we start our webinar that we have to keep in mind. But what I would like to encourage you, if before we start, if you have any questions, please use the chat or the Q&A box. I would like to know that this webinar will be recorded. So if you want to forward to any of your colleagues, please feel to do that. Everything that will be said during this webinar and presented as well will be available on the website, but also we will send to you by email, so you can expect everything by tomorrow morning as well. The recording of the webinar. As I mentioned, we will record this webinar. Your microphone and camera are automatically off, but if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. We will have a small Q&A session 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the end. So please ask all of your questions. We are aware that some things that we're gonna say today will be new to you. So if you have any questions about the process or any comments at all, please either, as I mentioned, use the chat box or Q&A part. As I mentioned, we will have the Q&A session at the end. So this is also the part where we encourage you to ask questions, but also to discuss with us in case you have any comments or to express any thoughts you have on this. Also, we will be using Slido for a couple of questions because we need some of your, let's say, feedback, and we want to know your experience with the issue and with the topic. So have your phones ready at hand because we will have some of the questions during the meeting for you as well. So before we head on to the topic and to why we are today, I just want to quickly announce the agenda for today. We will have a short introduction by on the health and safety group. Then I will give a floor to our chairman of the working group, Johannes Alexander Hudelmeier, who will also speak about the safety issues at the retailer in general, but also introduce also our escalation process. And a small feedback, let's say, outlook on also the issue will be given by Chris Skiddelmans from Volvo Cars on the safety environment in outbound logistics. So to start with, I will shortly give you an overview of the Health and Safety Working Group because we are aware that this is something that at ECG we are talking for a long time, and this group exists already for a couple of years. We are trying to promote our standards, and I'm pretty sure that at this point you heard at least for one of the topics and one of the outcomes that we did. So we will just give you a short overview on this. So how everything started, basically, we are all aware that we are talking about drivers, and we always talk about the shortage of drivers and that we need to keep them safe, as we are currently in the situation where we are lacking drivers. So the Health and Safety Working Group actually was created as an initiative by one of the OEMs, Steven Thomas from Toyota Motor Europe. And the idea is exactly that, to focus on reducing accidents in the road transport operations, especially to address fall from height. You will see that nowadays, after already 7 years, the working group has done much more than just focusing on this. But the initial, and I would say the bottom line, is to work on and improving the driver's safety. We have 5 subgroups that were created at that point. Not all of them are active today, and you will see why. Just for short overview, on what are the how the health and safety working group is structured and what we are doing here. So we have, I would say, overarching subgroup, and that you will see it's the subgroup 1 that is dealing with key accident learning and sharing. That's what we are calling the incident reporting. I will come back to that in a second. But then we have a subgroup that was dealing with safe loading, safe yards, safe equipment, and I would say what was left to do and what we are here today to present is our subgroup on the safe retailers. You will see that for the most of the groups, it's completed. This is because we have some outcome coming from those subgroups. That doesn't mean that if things don't come up, we will not take them under account. One of the things that we really and we always emphasize is our publications. So within the subgroup 2 that's dealing with safe loading, we have our guideline for safe loading process that we always and strongly recommend to our members, for actually to all truck operators. So if you didn't see this and if you didn't start using it, we strongly advise you to start doing so. Why? Firstly, it's very easy to use. It's illustrated step-by-step process how to safe load and unload cars. And probably you would ask, well, yes, but not everyone speaks English. Well, the good news is that this is actually translated into various languages, so you can easily also hand to your driver trainers and to the drivers for usage. Another publication that we have is our guidelines on safe yard design, and this is if you're opening a new compound or so on. I was mentioning our incident reporting activity, and I'm pretty sure that if you heard about the health and safety working group, that you're familiar with this activity, and it's very important. Why? We developed an online tool to let's say collect and help industry on severe incidents and near misses. What we are basically doing every year, we are collecting incidents in the industry that is related to loading and unloading operations on trucks, such as roll-offs, then drive-offs, some slips and trips. Then we are analyzing them and we are compiling and issuing a yearly report. And I cannot stress enough how much this is important for the industry, because this is the only way we can learn all together. Everything that is in the report is anonymized. So if you're having any fear that maybe, oh yeah, I'm going to report, but I don't want to see my company name there, it's absolutely justifiable. So the reports are completely anonymous. So we strongly encourage you to support us and report on your incidents. And this is the only way we can learn together, basically, as an industry, and how to prevent, as I mentioned, some of the big incidents that are happening during the loading and unloading operations. Then what's next with this part is that our yearly report, so we asked you for your 2024 incidents already to upload them. We are planning to have our yearly report published end of March, beginning of April. So another webinar will be organized regarding that. As I mentioned, we strongly encourage you to keep reporting and report on your 2025 incidents. And one of the things that we also want to focus and that will come as an outcome of the report is specifically focus on some incidents like roll-offs, as this is not only coming from the incident reporting, but also we have been alerted to these incidents that they are still ongoing regardless all efforts. And one thing that I want to mention that, well, I would say it's not specifically related to the health and safety working group, but this is something I would say our contribution and something that we are doing to improve the treatments of drivers at the delivery at sites is our collaboration with another organizations in Brussels. As you can see on the screen, ECG participated and signed a charter with IRU and also a pledge with the other industry actors on improving drivers' well-being. So this is it for my part. I will now hand it to Johannes to briefly explain to you about the in general safety issues at the retailers. But before we start with that, we have some icebreaker questions for you. So Johannes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivana. Thank you for everything that was also done in the beginning and also in the preparation. Maybe a short introduction also from my side. My name is Johannes Alexander Hödelmeier, chairing the Health and Safety Group, and especially also the safety at retailers that we will go into depth afterwards. But as we are really eager to hear also the opinions and also the experiences from your side who have joined the webinar today, we go through 3 questions, and as Giovanna mentioned in the beginning, the part where you take your phones would be now. So if you would have the time for Slido, if you have it already installed on your phones, that would be great. And we're starting with the question of what is the biggest safety issue for your company when delivering at the retailers or any other location? So some kind of words, no certain sentences need to be now put there, but some just keywords that we can also gather them. That would be much appreciated. So take your time. We will keep the poll running for a little bit.
Okay, sorry, Johannes, because for me, the Slido didn't launch this way. I will try then to launch it differently for participants so they can see.
Okay. Okay, yeah, there you go. So the QR code is listed there. You can scan it with your phone. And then we have the first question, as it was stated now on the PowerPoint as well. So what is the biggest safety issue for your company when delivering at retailers or any other location? Yeah, public road unloading, understandable. No clear unloading area, lack of proper parking, space for the truck, the driver safety, yes. Okay, very long answer. Loading docks, lighting, pedestrian pathways, yes, yes. Enough space for unloading, dedicated unloading area, yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah, no interest from side please. We will come to that in a little bit as well. But it shows already the safety, the biggest safety issues that you also are reconfirming in this way. Okay, great. Thank you very much for the contribution here. Then we would go to our next question. And that is what percentage of sites that you deliver to do you consider to have some sort of safety issue? So that should be just a rough estimation. It doesn't need to be very clear, but just if you put it from your point of view, it would be nice to have an indication also from our members. Okay, quite the range that we have here, but still, I think the big 50% shall indicate that 50% is the most answered way that we have so far. Okay, even a specification for Italy. Okay, so that seems there is quite some different views on things, but still, it is giving us also an impact on how you see it. That it's hard to tell, I can imagine, but well, it's helping us already. Well, thank you also for that. And the last question would be, how do you resolve a safety issue if you encounter at the delivery point? So if something like you mentioned in the first question is occurring, what is your approach of finding a solution in that matter? That is also something that we would be interested in to state. We are problem solving anyway. Yes, I think in as an LSP in our industry, you have to solve problems every day anyway. It's a good approach. Escalating to the OEM if necessary, also a good approach. Having a solution with the retailer in the first instance, and then with the OEM if there is no success. Stop and assess. Do not proceed if the situation is unsafe. Well, also good approach. Talking with the OEM, open discussion with the retailer. Up to the drivers. Next step is contacting address. Yeah, if no solution, no unloading and OEM is responsible. Okay, that's also good for us to know. Drivers report on spot and action taken immediately. Okay, with health and safety team. Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you very, very much for the contributions there. That's helping us and is also, I would say, confirming what the purpose of the retailer health and safety group was. Giovanni, if you would be so kind and switch back to the presentation.
Yes, of course. We will
Thank you.
share the presentation again.
Great. And then I'll take control. Yeah. So then we have to skip, I think, to the slide that I'm starting with, right?
Yes.
It's taking up
But if I
just a
may add to
second.
the questions that we and answers that we received now, I don't want to say this is what we were looking for, but I would say it's a good path, especially to the process that we have.
Exactly.
And I think this would be really good adding to what you already put there. So sorry, Johannes.
So no,
Back to
thank
you.
you very much for adding because what I wanted to say, and you will see it now in the next slides to follow, that it's reconfirming what the idea behind the whole working group was, and that we have as a prime goal to keep the safety of the drivers in mind and find a way how to deal with this issue. So, but before coming to that, what is important to keep in mind when we are talking about this is that the delivery that we are talking about is also referring not only to the delivery point at the retailers, but also to any external location. So yes, we are having a certain focus on retailers in the urbanized areas, but it's also about a matter of any external location there. So just to keep that in mind. If we're having a look at the cases, I'm not going through detail now to each and every one, but those are the ones that we received from, that we got experiences from, that we also got reported for certain members in ECG. But you can see also afterwards, I think the slides will be distributed to the members or also for those who have attended the webinar. So case one, for example, a driver was unloading on a public road for the retailer. Another car has collided with the truck, and then the driver was around the truck at the time, so was only slightly injured. So in this case, a happy situation in a very unfortunate situation. Or in the case to a car that was driving on the public road, crashed into the truck while he was unloading, and the unloading was done on the street as no dedicated unloading area is existing. Or also the case treatment of the drivers, as it was stated also in the poll before, that the dealer threatened the driver physically and psychologically during the whole process, and that the driver refused then to perform other tasks. So those are the day-by-day cases that happen quite often, and that we need to keep in mind. And those were also the initiator for the retailing group for health and safety. And also, as we were asking, what are you facing issues? Those are the ones that we have also identified. So I saw in the poll no lighting, uneven areas, but also no dedicated space for the unloading. I think this was the one that we saw most in the poll before, and also the unloading on the street with the traffic, which is the highest safety hazard or the highest safety risk that is connected with the delivery at the retailers. We firstly initiated this that we showed also to OEMs, but I will come to that in the end, already in October last year at the ECG conference in the industry meeting in Hamburg. And yes, I'm chairing the group and I'm standing for the company group Hödelmeier, but the picture that was also stated here on the left side, so that means this is also happening to us, and was taken in this case from Chris from Volvo, who initiated also the process within the Volvo Corporation, but he will go into detail there. But this is a not uncommon picture if we have, for example, unloading points in Vienna in Austria, or on the right side you can also see it's not it's in front of a roundabout where it's not the best place to unload something. Or if we have a look here, the red circle and also the driver is in the middle of the street, and it's such a high risk for safety reasons. And that's the reason why we took also the pictures to show it also to the OEMs to make it more clear what we are talking about. Or also here in the middle of the street, in front of a turn left lane. Yeah, just not the way we want to have it. So that is just the intro that we made. I will come into detail what we from ECG have also done from point of view, what measures could we do afterwards. But until then, I want to hand it over to Chris from Volvo Cars, who is also saying it from his point of view, how he sees the issue.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, Johannes Alexander. You already did a great introduction. And again, the picture shows more and describes more than 1,000 words, as they always said. I am participating 2 years ago in the ECG Academy as an employee from Volvo Cars. And as being part of the ECG Academy, you are obliged to make a kind of a thesis work. Now, the thesis work has to be related to a couple of criteria, and it was not really easy for me to find something in the beginning. But I remembered the first day when I took the picture that Johannes Alexander talked about, was my inspiration to make a report. And it was like clear for me that there is something in the logistics world that is maybe not always 100% accordingly what we expect to be as a normal standard. So yeah, you can go ahead, Johanna. Again, I made during my report also with help from some good friends and good people some pictures how the situation looked like during the outbound logistics operations at retailers and delivery places all over the world, and this is especially Europe. Then if you go further, Giovanna, then I will explain a little bit more. So the thesis what I wrote about was basically how does it look like from an, let's say, an environmental perspective in terms of working conditions for the truck drivers. And I looked a little bit into the operations that we have at the loading side, which is compounds and yards, as well to the part of the retailers where we have the deliveries to the retailer sites. We all know, and it was also in the introduction, that there is a big truck driver shortage within Europe, and that it's something that we have to contribute in to make it a bit more attractive. Yes, there is some conditions that is really sometimes difficult. But again, in the report that I made, we focused a little bit on these part of the social part also within the ESG. I hope everybody knows what ESG currently is standing for. Again, the graphs and the figures what I'm going to show you right now, it's from the report that I have created in 2023. So what I did, I made a smaller survey within 2 European countries because it was for myself, let's say, not easy task to maintain a bigger scope, but I tried to have with 2 countries within Europe at least a good overview of how the situation looks like. So from a survey that I executed towards the logistics service providers, it turned out that the drivers, they want to have, let's say, a situation where they can park and operate the unloading processes in a safe manner. Yeah. So it's predominantly the safety, what is focusing on the answers and the questions that I had, but the answers was resulting in the safety rather than, okay, can I go to a toilet? Can I fill up my water bottle or can I get a coffee? Secondly, it was the question how, and it was also experienced already before in the Slido questions, that how many times are you exposed to dangerous traffic situations? Well, this is very frequent. It shows also in the Slido results just given a couple of moments ago. And I think here it shows again the difference between loading on a compound or in a port where you can have your spot, where you have limitations around you in terms of driving speed and so on. So please, Ivana, you can proceed. Again, the survey was done in Belgium and Sweden. It was obvious because it was a bigger survey that I did, but I just keep for today the key slides in it. And the dealerships, they are basically not the same as the yards, as I said. So you have the traffic around you, you have multiple things that happens and can happen around the truck drivers during these unloading operations. Yep, please proceed. Then I also looked into what do we have from our own retailers within our own dealer network. So there was a question about, do you have sufficient space or where can a truck stand? Now, again, it was about 58% where our dealer network said that, yes, they have to park on a public road, or yes, there is a kind of an area where they can park the truck for unloading. But again, the majority shows here again that there is not sufficient space and they have to park on the public road. Then also looking into, is there sufficient space for parking the cars during the handover activities? Also here, it's a rather positive thing, but sometimes it can be limited that not all cars, if you have 2-3 truckloads a day to a certain dealership, that they cannot handle it, but they can handle at least 1 load a day. If we continue here into the next slide, we have within Volvo Cars a guideline that is used by our architects, as we call it. They make the blueprints for new dealerships with some standards about how a dealership should look like. When I looked into this during my study, we noticed together with the architects that there is a kind of a gap between this. And again, this is for new build activities. So if we're going to build somewhere in Europe or in the world a new dealership, that there is a list of requirements. And since 2023, we also put a design into the blueprint. So there is a standard design that can be used as the blueprint, where we now have truck delivery area for loading or even unloading, and most likely it's unloading cars at the dealership. So that's something that we have put into it as a kind of an improvement already, as a kind of a step forward that we would like to have, of course, because we see that we cannot do everything overnight, but at least we can contribute into a better unloading procedure during the unloading activities. If we look then to the last page, and that was also my let's say conclusion of the study that I did during the ECG Academy thesis work, there was 3 things that I would like to say we would like to focus on, both ourselves as Outbound Logistics, the central company, where we can do some continuous improvements. We have done the blueprint. We would like to get the involvement from the national sales companies as well with the retailers, where the local dealerships can maybe do easy things. They can put up safety cones. They can make a bit more awareness. They can have the supporting activities towards the drivers when they are discharging or unloading the cars. And the last pillar at that point of time in 2023 was my recommendation to the ECG, in fact, to start up the activities again. And with some support of Mike and as well Johannes Alexander, I think we have succeeded because the working group took it on, and yeah, we are here today basically. With that said, in a few slides and a few words, that was, let's say, the findings that I have found in 2023. I think everybody here can see similarities, can see things in common, but at least I tried to make my view of it, and well, I think it's that I would like to share here today to you all. So, Giovanna, I give you back the word. Yes, this is of course the last slide. There's one thing, it's the Volvo slogan for now. So for life, to give people the freedom to move in a personal, sustainable and safe way. Well, that is in fact valid for the entire supply chain, not only for the customers, but it's valid as we see it for the entire supply chain from start to finish. And that's also that we would like to contribute to, let's say, the last part of the delivery. Good. Thank you. If there's questions, I don't know how that will be handled. Giovanna, you can steer that.
Yes, questions we will do after the last session. So now Johannes will actually go through why we are here today through our escalation process for the delivery at retailers. So Johannes, the floor is yours.
Once again, thank you very much, Giovanna, and also thank you very much to Chris and his insights. I think it's also really good way that also from an OEM perspective, not just that the thesis had to be done in this way, but actually that there is a certain awareness created also for the topic, and that we can go through that. So we talked about before certain causes, certain initiators, where we stand also with the topic. Maybe just really briefly the work of the subgroup for delivery at retailers. The work of the subgroup that has already started before COVID. So I mean, it was Chris's input in 2023 was kind of a reigniting of the topic, and that is the reason why the group has worked since then also on the retailer escalation process, where the work was picked up once again. And we worked on the process as it looks as follows. I don't want to go through the chart on the right side by detail, but I think the message for today is really important, that there's a 3-step process that we as ACG are also implying and also suggesting for the member companies if they need any kind of support in that matter as well. So the first process would be the first step of the process would be the retailer itself. As it was mentioned also in the Slido poll before, that some of you do that already, that you try to find a solution with the retailer itself, but that doesn't matter. It can be sometimes the case. In some cases, it won't be happening, or is not. There can't be a solution can't be found accordingly. The second step, if that is not working, would be the contract holder, or in that case, the OEM, as I saw also beforehand in the Slido. Some of you are doing that also as well, which is also good, because this is also the process how we would also suggest how we would like to handle it from an LSP point of view. And lastly, if that is also not working out in the way it should be intended, then ECG would also start to initiate the process, or also join the conversation to find a better way, but let's say also a systematic way that we can get into dialogue with the OEM accordingly also. And as you can see in the very top on the chart, the red squares indicates it, that ultimately it would come to the point that the LSP stops the delivery to the retailer if there is no proper solution in place, and then also the request of ECG to intervene together for the LSP. If we go into the evaluation sheet that we also were working out in that matter, are also 3 parts. So we have on the first part the access to the retailers, the parking and the unloading, and the driver support and the facilities. The whole chart or the whole sheet looks like stated on the right side, but I'll go into each and every point that we were working on. So the first one is access to the retailers, and as you can see, there is a certain sheet that you can fill in and also address. Also not here going through every of the points, but as you can see, there are very safety critical items that should be resolved immediately if they are rated on the scale from 1 to 5 with a 1 or 2, and that are stated the first 2 ones with A1 and A2. On the one hand, obstacles or barriers like low-hanging trees along the route, or also low bridges and tunnels, then you can also have a look there and rate it accordingly. Then the second point would be parking and unloading. This is the one we're talking also about. There's multiple ones, but they are actually meeting all the points that we are also were talking before, starting with enough space, or also minimal interaction with road traffic, that there are also obstacles or barriers within the drive path, and so on and so on, or also sufficient lighting should be there. And if one of those points are rated with 1 or 2, then we are talking about critical points. And thirdly, we have the issue of driver support and facilities, because it was also stated beforehand that certain behaviors towards drivers are not necessarily appropriate, and there would also be some ratings that could indicate accordingly as well. What is now the process of the ECG, and what do we do further to make ourselves visible, and also make it clear what we really want to do? In the first place, it's very important to state, as I mentioned now, I think multiple times, it is very necessary that you follow the steps for the process that we provide. So firstly, you should always ask yourself the question, did you follow the steps that we have in the escalation process? And then you can contact ECG by filing the online form, the request for support on the ECG website. And what is also important for you to provide, and it is stated here, I'm just going through very quickly, the general information about the company and the delivery location, then also the completed evaluation sheet, as we just went through beforehand, due also to the criteria, which is very necessary for us also to evaluate accordingly. The summary of the meetings with the management at the location. So coming back to the escalation process, that would be in step 1, the dialogue with the retailer, then also the summary meeting with the contract holder, in that case, for example, the OEM, which would be part 2 of the escalation process, and then any other information that would be relevant for us, or also relevant in that matter, that we can properly support in that matter. And also, which is something that I want to state and say here is, we were also thinking about to make the whole thing more from an objective point of view, but also from an official point of view. The legal perspective needs to be thought through well. And that's the reason why we have also a recommended contractual clause that we would propose for all ECG members that are affected by this matter to integrate within their contractual obligations also with OEMs or other customers. And the legal text that was proposed by an ECG transport lawyer and reviewed also by our legal network in ECG. And that is also important to cover the situations when LSPs are not able to even load or unload safely at the delivery point. And as mentioned, our recommendation would be to include this clause within the contracts of your customers as well. The next steps now, process-wise, what are we doing? So we started today with the official communication within the webinar. We will also, after the webinar is ending, we will do some external communication, so we make ourselves also visible in that matter. And and so that we really are eager to proceed accordingly in the process. And secondly, the communications towards the OEMs. I mentioned in the very beginning that we had already initially, let's say, teasered the topic to the OEMs in the industry meeting, in the physical industry meeting we had in October 2024, and are doing it now once again in the industry meeting in April, where I think there is also the availability to register yourselves as well. That we are really serious about this matter, because at the end of the day, we only have one purpose in this whole thing, which means that we want to ensure the safety of the drivers and ensure that we can do our jobs properly, and also the drivers in their day-by-day business. Now it will come, as Chris mentioned already before, to the Q&A session. Thank you very much for the high attendance and also for the high interest from LSP point of view in trucking. And I'm happy to answer. Me and Chris, I hope I'm getting the support from Chris as well, are happy to answer any questions that have arisen in the last 30 minutes.
So yes, as mentioned, in case you have any questions, you can just raise your hand, and Johannes or Chris or us will be very happy to answer to all of your questions. Regarding the material, you will receive everything after the webinar, including with the legal text that, as Johannes mentioned, we strongly recommend you to include in your contract, as it's really specifically to the delivery points. As I don't see any questions and hands raised. Of course, if you have any,
maybe we give some more time. Maybe it's needing some time to type in the question as well. Or maybe there are really no questions at the moment, and they occur somewhere afterwards.
For now, we would think that everything is clear, but you can always, if you have any questions, as after the webinar, you can. I see that there is actually one question about the toilet in the Q&A about the driver facilities. And it's actually the good point. Is it a toilet available, or should be a clean toilet available? So this is regarding the driver facilities part.
There is now a question about.
Yes, there is one question. I don't know if you, Johannes, want to take over the situation. The retailer can be dynamic. What would be the process then?
So I think this question is indicating in case that it's getting hectic and at a certain point you won't be able to do a really organized process in that matter. Yes, I think if you're having the process in mind that we're working on it, that there needs to be a certain to keep calm, even if it's very dynamic or very stressy, is the most important. How to handle the situation yourselves from a transport point of view at the moment when there is any issues occurring at the retailer. Well, I think this is very subjective and also very individual case. What we tried to talk about today is that we want to find a systematic approach if there is anything like that, so that there is singular cases that can happen every time. I think we all can agree on. But if there is a systematic problem at the same retailer, that there is always an issue occurring if one of your drivers is trying to unload there, and that can begin from just being not able to have a dedicated parking space to the point where there is issues with the personnel there from the retailer, that our point of view or our position in this whole process is that you need to start or try to find a solution by yourselves in the first place, and initiating the escalation process for the long run, so that we're really talking about solving a systematic issue rather than singular points that can occur in everyday's work.
I hope that
answered
answered the question.
And if not, then please let me know.
Then we have still some questions. What about the public road closing, etc.? Is it possible for unloading time, of course, organized by retailer? I'm not sure what is referring here to, so maybe I see it's asked. Maybe you can raise the hand and ask this. But before that, we have the question about actually UK. How do you cover the UK since the Brexit? All of your standards and the EU-related charters and groups cover the UK still. Well, I think maybe I can take this one, as this is, well, I would say the issue at the retailer is the same everywhere. And the recommended, for instance, legal part that we have, it's the thing that you're putting in your contract. So this is you will see when you read, very broad. In that sense, so you can include in all of your contracts. And I see Mike wants to add something on this as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not quite sure what the question is about. Brexit has nothing to do with this. We're not an EU association. We're a European association. And things like this are completely unaffected by Brexit. UK is not the only non-EU country in Europe where we represent carriers. So yes, absolutely. Of course, there are maybe different legislation regarding certain things like weights and dimensions, but that's different for many countries. Other than that, everything we do is pan-European. If that doesn't answer your question, by all means, come back to me either now or individually later.
Yeah, all questions, in case we don't answer them now in details, you can just come back to us. Then we have a question. Please estimate the time frame when we can see a concrete results conforming retailer sites in field. If you mean about the time frame, in a sense, when you launch the process, and if you start the escalation process, if you think on that time frame, I think at this point it's very hard to tell, as this will depend on first on you as an LSP. If you provide us with all the documentations needed, we will launch the process with the OEM, and this will be again a lot back and forth. So at this point, it's very, very, very hard to tell, but we will work with you individually to try to resolve the issue well, as soon as possible. Then another question we have: possible to develop like in France, where the retailer is liable and is obliged by regulation to allow a safe working environment? Well, this is, I can also take this one, I guess, a legislation issue, and it's depending country on the country by country case. You will actually see that the legal text that we are advising you to include in your contracts is actually trying to resolve this situation. And I would basically rephrase it, but it basically says in case you cannot deliver, that you stop the delivery and try to resolve the issue. Again, Mike, I see you want to add something on this. You're muted.
Thought I got used to that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to add that health and safety legislation is effectively all done at national level. It's not something that the EU takes care of. So, and we're not going to get into individual legislation in individual countries. You're the operators working in those countries. I'm sure you know what the rules are. But if there is legislation, then that should support you in progressing and dealing with any dangerous situations, I assume.
And actually, one thing that we are emphasizing in the legal clause that we are recommending to you is that dealers and also the shippers, so in this case, OEMs have to align with all local legislations and the legislation from the country in name. So it depends where you are delivering. So if the country, like you mentioned, France has this, then it's very important that it's also raised with us that this something exists in the country, but for instance, the dealer has not enough dedicated space for unloading or something similar. I don't know if there are. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I think we've skipped one from Claudia, who said, please estimate a time frame when we can see concrete results conforming retailer sites in the field. I think you've maybe misunderstood what we're trying to do here. So I just wanted to clarify, we are here to help anybody who's unable to deal with a situation where, you're in some way forced to put a driver into an unsafe situation. So we're talking about individual situations where you're unable to deal with it yourself. I was really pleased to see some of the Slido results and the actions people are taking, but we all know that there are, particularly some of our smaller members, pressured into situations to just get the job done. That's what we're all here for, isn't it? Just get the job done, but not at any cost, and never accepting dangerous situations. And we know as well, dealing with individual retailers, part of the issue here is a contract's often held at European level. You've maybe got a national sales company in between the contract holder and the actual dealership. So the OEM who holds the contract may have, quite often, will not have any commercial relationship with the dealership at all. Fantastic to see Volvo putting in place requirements for new dealers. A long time ago, when I worked for an OEM, appointing new dealers was part of the job. I can tell you then there was never any consideration of how a transporter would unload at a site, and I suspect that nothing has changed. So, we're here to support you if you can't solve something yourself. We will, and you can demonstrate that you've done, as Johannes Alexander's explained, all the things that in the process that we would expect you to do. And at that point, if you've not resolved a problem and you're still expected to encounter an unsafe situation, we'll step in and do what we can to assist and support you.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions for now from you. Again, if you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach us. As I mentioned, this is a new process. This is something that we just launched, and this is also, let's say, learn on the go. We will for sure have some mends by talking to you, by receiving a feedback. So this is just the first step. Everything will be sent to you after the webinar, including the recording. So you can also forward to your colleagues as well. I would like to thank you for attending. Also to thank Chris and Johannes for the valuable contribution for the webinar. And we would end here. Thank you so much.